Good morning. Let's begin by taking a few breaths, shall we? So let everything out, breathe in, and let go. Another deep breath in, and let go. One more collective breath, breathing in, and letting go. So here we go. So our theme for the month, as you know, is a pause for guidance. And our theme for this week is, can you imagine what's next? So we're going to talk a little bit this morning about the power of the imagination. And what does that have to do with pausing for guidance? Well, I think that it's really important as we move through our existence, through our individual path, through our collective experience, that we pay attention to which voice it is that we're listening to, right? And we're talking this month about taking a pause for guidance, about stopping, about in the midst of all that's unfolding, about recognizing that there is a voice, that there is a guidance, that there is a lure of becoming. There's something that is informing each one of us at any given time, should we be willing to turn to it and listen to it. And we've been talking over the last couple weeks about our transition, our leadership transition here in this community, and really in the last years, we've been talking about just the upheaval and the transition that's taking place in the world around us. And as we look to the guidance, it's really important for us to recognize what voice we're listening to. That when we come up against or into a new experience, when we come into a new experience or we come up against what might look like an old experience coming back again, what voice is informing us about what we're looking at? You know, we had that quote from Nelson Mandela that Tamara read that I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not going to remember it exactly, but it was something to the effect of, my imagination allowed me to have a vision that was beyond what my eyes could see. And there's this lovely idea that comes from the ancient Greeks that they believed that the past was rolled out in front of us, and that the future was creeping up behind us, and we were walking backwards into the future. Right? And so what's visible, what's available to our eyes or to our memory is where we've been, is the experiences we've had before, is how we did this last time, is what it looked like when it came around before in our experience. And so it's really easy to see what we've already seen. It's really easy to see where we've been. It's really easy to see what's right in front of us. It's a whole nother thing to be willing to look at what we're backing up into. It's a whole nother thing to look through the eyes of the imagination at what's possible. Right? And you've heard me say over and over and over again over the last number of years that I really believe that this philosophy of science of mind is here to teach us possibility thinking. We say that in our purpose statement here, that we teach possibility thinking. Possibility thinking requires a whole lot of imagination. Possibility thinking is a practice that tells us, when I'm looking at a situation, when I'm looking at what's coming, when I'm looking at what's in front of me, am I looking at what I see and what I know, or am I looking at what could be and what's possible? Right? That this idea of possibility thinking is really about living in the field of imagination. And then realizing that there's a part of ourself, that thing that I call the lure of becoming, that's always saying, come be me, the one that Ernest Holmes says is the presence that goes out before you, that if we tune into that there's a voice, that there's a guidance, that there's a presence available to each one of us that's saying, look at all of the possibilities in front of you. One of them holds the highest outcome. But if I'm only looking at what I know, if I'm only looking at what I can see, I'm constricting those possibilities. right? And so when you come to a situation in your life, which voice do you notice you listen to most? When you come into an experience, do you go, oh, well, this is how we did it last time? Or do you, when you come up to an experience, do you say, what could we do differently this time? Because I know where we've been, I know how that played out. But I don't know how the unknown could play out. Right? And part of our rotational themes that we're also playing in, because we have these other themes that are rolling over our themes, is into the mystery. Right? We've been cycling around that one. And this idea of moving into the realm of the imagination, for me, is really about living in the mystery. About being willing to walk through life as if there's some great unfolding potential in front of us that's just waiting to be revealed at any moment. You know, Ernest Holmes talks about living with expectancy. Not expectation, because expectation is based on all that past stuff. Expectation is based on my experience. Expectation is based on what I know and what I can predict and what I can expect. But expectancy is this feeling of excitement and enthusiasm of what's next. I'm a gardener. I like to plant things. And when it's springtime, I can wake up every single morning in my garden with a great sense of expectancy because I know when I walk outside, there's going to be a new flower or a new sprout or a new little mushroom or a new this or a new that. There's going to be something there. I don't know what it is, but I'm looking forward to seeing what has grown because I know based on the laws of gardening that if I've done everything that I need to do, something is going to come up. So I wake up every morning with the expectancy of what am I going to find today. When I was in kindergarten, my parents got a note home. Yeah, you know. I was not Elisha yet, so the note read something to the effect of, Christopher has an overactive imagination. And we think he needs an outlet for that that's not school. Interesting. That says something about our educational systems, but that's another talk. So my kindergarten teacher and my parents came up with this idea that they called imagination time. And it was 45 minutes before school and after school where my parents would put me in my room and shut the door, and I could go anywhere in my imagination that I wanted to go. But then when I was in school and when I was everywhere else, I had to, bring it in. So it was a gift, but it was also kind of not a gift. Because that, the programming, the messages, what does that tell us about imagination, right? It has a place. A special place, but it has a place. And when you're in school and when you're in the world, you need to rein that imagination in. And I feel like so many people are given that message in our education system. So it says, rein that imagination in. And unfortunately, that leads to a society that seems to have a lack of imagination. And when I think about a lot of the things that have unfolded in our country in the last number of months or years, what I see is an epidemic of a lack of imagination. That when we don't have a vision of possibility, when we can't see where things could go, and we feel like we don't like where they are, oftentimes we want to go back to what we know. And so we see a whole lot of people in our society that want to move us back to a time when they think we were great, perhaps. And that instead of looking at what could be, we say, things were good back then. Let's just go back where it's comfortable, as opposed to move forward into the mystery, into the possibility, into the unknown, where something else might be there. But what could it be? We don't know. That requires imagination, right? And so imagine yourself, and if you have room next to you, I want you to just put both of your arms out like this, and imagine that where you've been and what you know is on the left, and where you could be and where you're going is on the right. And I want you to feel all of the stuff you know about yourself pulling on you from the left, and it's saying, just come back, stay here, stay to the left, this is what you know, this is what's safe. but then there's a whole lot of possibility over here calling you, and it's pulling you to the other right. And feel yourself kind of like pull left, pull right at the same time, right? There you are, right in the present moment, in that struggle, in that stretch. The practice is to live right in the center, right? Because there's a whole lot of information available to us from our past, but that's not the only information. And think of memory as the way you can look at the past. Think of imagination as the way you can look at the future. And that as we walk through the universe of multiplicity and the multiverse of possibility, as we walk through our path, there's an infinite number of paths in front of us. But every time we make a choice, the path collapses behind us into the one that we walked through, right? So think there's 1,000 choices in front of us, and as I walk through them, they all collapse into one. And so I can see clearly the path behind. But imagination is the doorway to all those paths in front. And spiritual practice is that thing that brings us right into the middle of that stretch. Spiritual practice is the thing that brings us into the eternal now moment that actually includes both sides of the equation. And that pause for guidance that we've been talking about through spiritual practice, through spiritual community, through meditation, through all of our practices, is a space to invite us to get still enough where we can absorb all of the wisdom and the experience of where we've been and all that we know, and then also take in all of the possibilities of what could be. And the more that we're willing to play and live in the field of possibility, the more we activate those possibilities. The more we live in the field of our memory and our past, the more we activate the field of our memory and our past. And so think of these two little voices on your shoulder. That you have the voice of your memory and the voice of your imagination. When you come into situations in your life, which one is louder? Which one are you listening to more often? Which one is more automatic? Mary Mannon Morrissey gives a great analogy. She says, imagine a large, full-grown adult goose. And now put that goose inside of a giant glass bottle that's an inch thick, and it just has a tiny little opening on the top. Now here's your imagination experiment. How do you get the goose out of the bottle without breaking the bottle or harming the goose? I'll give you a moment to think. How could you get it out? Without breaking the bottle or harming the goose, how do you get it out? She says, you imagine him out. That's how you got him in there. You just imagine him out. Done. Right? But we have to get to that place. How many of you have seen that 9-dot experiment where there's 9 dots in a square and they say connect these with 4 lines? Have you ever done that? In order to do this little brain exercise, you see these 9 dots, and 90% of people think that they have to stay within the dots. And it's impossible to connect them all with 4 lines if you stay inside the dots. It's only those who are willing to imagine that the rules might be a little different than they appear, that there might be another way, that there might be something beyond this constricting vision that can look beyond those dots and say, wait a minute, if I do this and go outside of the structure, suddenly there's an answer. And our good old friend Albert Einstein reminds us that we can never solve a problem at the level of the thinking that created it, that we have to rise to a new level of thinking in order to come up with new ideas, new solutions, new ways of doing and being. This is about imagination. Jean Houston tells a story of when she was a little girl, she got to meet Albert Einstein as part of her school. And she says that one of the kids in her class raised their hand and said, Mr. Einstein, how do we become as smart as you are? And he said, read fairy tales. And so Jean Houston, of course, the little one in the class, goes up and says, okay, Mr. Einstein, how do we become smarter than you? And he said, read more fairy tales. Right? What he was saying to her class was the power of the imagination, the ability to dream into stories, the ability to think into greater possibilities. That is the key to intelligence. That is the key to the answers that you're looking for. It's in the power of your imagination. You know, Einstein was a brilliant thinker because of his thought experiments, because of his ability to go into his mind and imagine traveling on a particle of light across the universe and to think of what that would be like. And then it brought him to all these realizations. Right? It wasn't by looking at what was already known. It wasn't by doing the science necessarily that led Einstein to his breakthroughs. It was his ability to go into his mind and go on a journey of imagination. And I'm so incredibly grateful that at a very young age in my life, I was given a prescription for imagination time every day. Because I realized that over the course of my life, that the power of that imagination has become a deep piece of my spiritual practice. And I believe for each one of us that tapping into that creative place within us is actually tapping into the divine nature itself. That we are connected to a divine mind, the one whose imagination from all of which creation has flowed. That we are the result of the imagination of the universe itself, and then we are the universe itself, imagining and creating even more. And in order for us to get to a place where we can even conceive of building a world that works for everyone, we have to be able to imagine it. And when we see the world that is, do we immediately go to what we know, or do we go to what could be? Because it's only by being attached to, wrapped up in, enraptured by a vision, an idea, a possibility, that we actually have the energy and the impetus to do the work that's necessary. Especially as we move into the world as it is right now, and it seems to be getting, a little harder and harder and harder and harder to see the possibilities, because we're so in it. Right? When we're in it, when we're in the experience, it's hard to see our way out. We have to develop a sense of imagination and a vision and a conception of who we are in the universe that is bigger than the problems in front of us. Because if we look at the issues of the world and we think to ourselves, oh, how can little old me do anything about this? You found your answer. You can't. But if each one of us cultivates a sense of self that says, wait a minute, I am the universe. I am the creative power of evolution and creative intelligence and imagination itself, that I am a possibility thinker, and that I am part of the process of evolution, and that there's a piece of this puzzle that I hold myself that is uniquely tuned to me, then suddenly I have a place in this picture. But we each have to be willing to imagine ourselves as part of this interconnected web of possibilities and realize that if God is all there is and each one of us is one with that thing, then right where each one of us is the center of potential. That any one of us in any moment could be the impetus for a whole new experience of creation. But we have to be willing to be open to it. We have to be willing to imagine the possibilities. And so here's a simple little fun practice that I invite you to take home with you. How many of you have seen the show Friends? Yeah? So every episode of Friends is titled The One Where ... The one where Ross and Rachel, the one where Phoebe such and such, the one where Chandler does this, right? So I like to think of all the possibilities when I come up to a choice as the one wheres. And there's the one where Elisha does this. There's the one where Elisha does that. There's the one where Elisha goes over here. And as I run down all the one wheres, I either get excited, I get disappointed, I get upset, I get whatever. And as I run down the one wheres, I go, oh, well, there's a one where this leads to a really good outcome. There's a one where we build a thriving community. There's the one where we emerge into a world that works for everyone. And if we can go down these lines of the one wheres and find visions, ideas, outcomes, possibilities that are incredibly captivating and alluring and call to us, then we have a drive, we have a vision, we have a dream. And this lack of imagination, this epidemic of the inability to see possibilities in our world, the cure for that is powerful vision, is people of imagination, is creative minds who are willing to think outside of the box and look for new ways of doing and being, to think into new ways of doing and being. And that takes a whole lot of imaginative thinking. And it takes a willingness to run down all the one-wheres and realize that not all of them are great. Some of them are awesome, and some of them are just sort of are, right? And many of us tend to just choose the ones that sort of just are. Like that's kind of the mode of the world, if you will. And there's very few people who see the one-wheres and say, that one, that's it. And hold on to a vision so powerfully that nothing in the physical world can deter them. And those people change the world. The people who have vision, the people like Nelson Mandela who can live in a prison for decades and in his mind see beyond the walls, see a possibility, see compassion, see love, see a world where something is different. That even from prison, Nelson Mandela was able to use the power of his imagination to look beyond the walls and see something else, and we all know his name because of that. There is great power in the imagination, and it is this possibility thinking, it's possibility thinkers who are the ones who make great impact in our communities, in our lives, and in the world. And so let us together be a people who are so willing to run down these lines of all the one-wheres and continuously choose the best one. But we have to keep doing it and keep feeling into it and keep asking those questions. And the key to this practice is 100% enthusiasm with 0% attachment. Good luck. But it works. Because if we can run down ideas with all the enthusiasm that's there and not be attached to outcomes, it allows us to walk through life in a more like childlike, imaginative awe. And that sense of awe is what is going to keep leading us towards greater possibilities. And so as you interact with me in the next weeks and months as we step into this new journey together, know that I'm one who likes to run down lots of ones-where. There's the one where we paint a mural. There's the one where we paint the walls red. There's the one where we do, with all sort of excitement to see which ones generate more excitement. And as we run down these lines of possibility and bring our enthusiasm with us, and then other people catch certain ones, and we see that there's greater and greater enthusiasm and excitement building around certain ones where those are the ones we go down together. But we have to be willing to be the popcorn thinkers that are just letting ideas bubble forth. Cosmologist Brian Swim talks about the universe as foaming forth with possibility. That creation is like popping a champagne cork, and every one of those bubbles is a whole universe of possibility. And that in every moment, the universe is foaming forth with possibilities. Let us not get stuck on any one particular bubble and realize that there is a power within our minds, which is the power that created the entirety of all of the multiverse throughout time. And it's also doing so right now. And that wherever we place our attention is what we get drawn towards. And so do we place our attention on what we know and where we've been? Or do we place our attention on all the potentials and possibilities of what could be and keep seeking the greatest outcome continuously? Let us together create a community of mind that is foaming forth with possibility. Let this be a place of imagination and creativity. Let's do it. So take a breath, let it go, and then just connect with the rhythm and the flow of your own breath. And as you breathe in and breathe out, contemplate with me for a moment that each one of us is being breathed by something greater than ourselves. That we are being animated, that we are being lived, that our hearts are being beat by some power beyond our control. And that one power, that one life that is living and breathing in everyone and everything is the source of all possibility. It is the source of divine intelligence. It is the infinite creativity, the infinite possibility, the ocean of creation. And let us recognize that this consciousness permeates every particle, every person, every planet is all possibility. That indeed the universe is foaming forth with possibility, with multiplicity, with diversity, with creation, with evolution, with forward movement. There is so much in this present moment. And yet each one of us is a place where all of that possibility funnels itself into existence through our attention, through our choice, through our participation in life. We are the place where the universe creates. And so let us in this place and in this community be a people who live in that possibility, who live in the foaming forth of ideas of expectancy, that we are a people who wake up every day ready to run outside and see what new thing has emerged in the world because we were looking for it. And so let us just breathe together, knowing that the mind that created all things, that the love that permeates everything is right here, right now. And it is informing us through our memory, but it is calling us through our imagination. And through the collective wisdom of all of that awareness, let us just celebrate potential. Let's celebrate possibility. Let us just be in gratitude for the life that we've lived and the life that is calling us in this present moment that we feel the stretch. Remembering that we are being guided, we are being called, we are always being led by a power for good in this universe that is so much greater than we are. And yet it is who we are. And so let us be the place where all possibility becomes actuality. Right here, right now, together. And so it is. Thank you.